If you would like to support the podcast and get some extra content while you're there, head on over to patreon.com/Severe MMA podcast and sign up. From the rewatch to the Q&A, we will have loads of content every week. So sign up, patreon.com/Severe MMA podcast. And now, here's the podcast. Welcome everybody. It's episode 349 of the Severe MMA podcast. My name is Sean Sheehan, joined today by the Sol Bamba of Irish MMA media, Graeme McDonald, as we talk about a big week coming up, especially in the world of mixed martial arts. And at the end of this podcast, I will hand it over to Sean Sheehan himself to talk you through Hermansson versus Strickland and all the goings on from last night in the world of mixed martial arts. So before we get into all of that, we must tell you that this episode of the podcast is brought to you as always by our friends over at Manscaped. And Valentine's Day is coming up now very soon, and the new year has just passed. So Manscaped are working harder than ever to ensure that Valentine's Day, and this year, is one to remember. Don't turn this day of romance into Independence Day, and get in control with the Performance Package 4.0, which includes the Lawnmower 4.0. This February, join the 4 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped with our exclusive offer. So go to manscaped.com and use the code SEVEREMA for 20% off and free shipping. Contrary to popular belief, love is not blind when you can see past the love jungle. So the Performance Package 4.0 will leave you with more dating app notifications than Cupid has arrows. This lovely bundle comes equipped with the best tools needed to freshen up for your night out. As I mentioned, that Lawnmower 4.0, it's an electric trimmer, the advanced skin-safe technology to reduce nicks and cuts on your delicate nuts. 4000K LED spotlight, which is bright enough to shine your light on love this year. Education breeds confidence, so it's time to get educated on the ultimate grooming routine. The Performance Package also includes the Weed Whacker, which helps you cut your ear and nose hair, and 2 free gifts as well: the shared travel bag and the anti-chafing boxers. That travel bag I'll finally be able to use it going to Bellator here in a couple of weeks as well. 2 liquid formulations in as well: the Crop Preserver, first of all, a ball deodorant, which I just came out the shower before we did the podcast and I used it, and the Crop Reviver ball toner as well, you can use in a few hours after. Absolutely brilliant stuff altogether. Let's not just focus on the southern region. Manscaped Refined Cologne is a cherry on top for the perfect date package, Pepe Le Pew approved. It offers a masculine yet light scent that will leave your lady speechless. Manscaped has you covered this Valentine's Day. Get yourself a gift that you and your date will both appreciate. So go to manscaped.com for our exclusive offer and get 20% off plus free shipping with the code SEVEREMA. And that free shipping is absolutely brilliant. You can't buy love, but you can buy a clean pair of balls. 20% off free shipping with the code SEVEREMA at manscaped.com. Code SEVEREMA at manscaped.com. Help tame that love jungle you have in your pants with our friends over at Manscaped. All right, Graeme, let's get straight into it. Now, okay, we leave, as I said at the start of the podcast, we leave yesterday's fights until the end of the podcast. Do you know what? We leave next week's fights as well for another second. Do you know what I want to start off this podcast talking about for a couple of minutes here is the Ultimate Fighter. Now, the Ultimate Fighter is a thing that we've only so much space to cover stuff here on the Severe MMA podcast. You know, we talk more on TUF and on Patreon and different things. Oh, also before we start, if you're a Patreon, we have this issue every week, and I think everyone has it on Patreon, because I was listening to I think it was Sean Ross Sapp saying as well, with Revolut and cards going out and stuff as well. People just get like automatically taken off of Patreon even if you don't cancel. So if you're on Patreon, just have a look please at your settings. Maybe you got a new card or something, because we literally have nearly 40% of our patrons are just stuck in limbo. If you want to cancel, absolutely cancel. If you want to keep going, we really appreciate you. So it's no problem that way. But it's people literally just stuck in limbo, and it's been a problem since we started up with it. We haven't mentioned it much because I don't like talking about stuff like that, but it's a weird situation for everyone, because I know probably there's some people out there who are not getting our podcast and like, what's happening here? So please have a look. If you want to cancel, no problem with that. If you want to keep going, please do, and just have a look. So and if you want to sign up new, please do as well. There's we passed the 1,000 mark of podcasts, so there's loads of them you can go back on and listen to. And Graeme, your 12 years of Severe MMA, I know you've 10 years of Severe MMA, you've 12 episodes up. They're fantastic. There's another one coming up up in a couple of weeks. But anyway, we forget about that. Go over to patreon.com/Severe MMA Podcast. Please have a look at your settings if you are one of those people who kind of stuck in limbo, and maybe we'll be able to get everyone going in the right direction or wherever we're going. Anyway, let's get into to TUF. So it was announced this week that Julian Pena and Amanda Nunes will be coaching TUF. It's going to be female flyweights and male heavyweights. I think I kind of half heard of one of the male heavyweights, and then Kamaru Usman's brother as well, if I'm not mistaken, is in it. Didn't know any of the flyweights. That's not to say they're not good fighters or anything, but they seem to be very, very inexperienced people. I don't think any of them have like double-digit wins in either of the weight classes. I put up a thing last night that Alexei Olnik has 20 more fights than all the heavyweights combined, wins and losses. So that'll tell you where we are at the moment. And TUF really was never that. You know, it was the best fighters outside of the UFC coming together to fight to get a contract in the UFC. It wasn't. Well, it hasn't been that for a long time. That's what I'm saying. But that's what it was before. I remember watching a clip from like an old episode of TUF. Like, there's a lot of new fans as well, and they mightn't understand how important TUF was or how good TUF was. But it's weird. When I saw this announcement, I was like, I've kind of gone long enough without watching TUF now that I actually might give it a chance a little bit as well. I didn't watch a single second of the last season, and there's probably, 4 or 5 seasons where I haven't watched any of it. Now, if there's an Irish person or someone around,
I honestly think the last time I watched any of TUF, even a minute, even a clip from TUF, was when Pendred and Chris Fields were on the show. That was just because they were on the show. It's just the same format over and over. And maybe it's changed. I don't think it has, but maybe it's changed while I haven't been watching it. But a little bit of tweaking with it, just so it's not so formulaic, especially when you have, as you mentioned, the fighters are kind of inexperienced. They're not exactly, guys who are knocking down the door of the UFC to get a contract like it used to be. So, it's good to have Amanda Nunes and Julian Pena as the coaches, but I just see this, people might watch an episode or two and then they'll just remember, I've seen this 20 seasons of this already, and kind of lose interest.
Yeah, and I feel like that's what's going to probably happen with me again.
We can take bets on how many episodes Sean lasts before he burns out, and it's just a job to watch TUF. It's just a matter of pride because you don't want to lose.
The weird thing was, the TUF kind of recaps are something I would read before, when I wasn't watching the seasons, because I kind of wanted to keep up with it a bit, but it was very hard. We've so much to watch and things these days, and so much to do, and I'm recording an awful lot and things these days. It's very hard to get it all in. Not complaining or anything, it just is. There's just so much stuff. I know the PFL Contender Series thing is starting as well. But on just TUF itself, right, I know there's a lot of new fans actually listening. People have come in, say, since the McGregor era and even a little bit before, and there's a lot of pandemic fans here as well. Yeah,
sorry. Well, obviously I watched the TUF season with McGregor. Sorry, I said Pendred and Fields earlier.
Yeah, but it's TUF. TUF used to be special. It used to be something I would look forward to. It used to be something that we would want to see, and also there was a time where it became a bit bland and a bit samey, and then we wanted to see changes, and we wanted to see
season. Yeah, that was a really good season, and people were calling for that for a long time, and that would be a lot more interesting to, I think, everybody involved. To see how these people interact in the house, and the people who they actually know and have followed their careers for a while and have been in the UFC before and all that. I think it got to a stage where a lot of people were, when they were watching TUF, they were just skipping through the kind of house drama and just going to the fights.
I think the big issue now, though, is we have no drama, and it's just these milquetoast,
and the fights don't matter as well. So there's no point even tuning in for the fights now. That's what I was going to go on to. So now, when looking at the ladies' records here, Chantel Coates or Quatez 2-1, and Juliana Miller 2-1. Claire Guthrie 3-1. These are fights you could miss them and it would make no difference. So these are not, even if you never heard the result, it doesn't matter.
Feels like the TUF fights have been replaced by mid-level UFC fights. The likes of the people who came with, like a Cathal Bender or Chris Fields back when they were fighting, they would be in the UFC now with their records, and they'd be fighting
Cage Warriors champions and all that stuff. They wouldn't.
Remember they had a whole season, I think it was the 125 season, and all of them were champions, and that wasn't that long ago. So it's just it's not the show it was anymore, and I feel like they need to change it. They need to do something with it. And the point I was kind of making there earlier on was, we always kind of strived for maybe something different to make it better or to kind of bring it back. Now it just feels like no one even cares and no one's even watching it. And when you go online and TUF is on for the last few seasons, there's no one even talking about it or anything like that. So the Dana White Contender Series,
the coaches are great fighters and like all that stuff, and it'll probably make the pay-per-view when they rematch do better numbers. But do they have the personalities to keep people interested if these fights aren't of a good quality?
I don't think Pena does. Pena definitely does. And anyway, like, Pena's going to put people off of anything. I don't think, I like Amanda Nunes, and I don't mind Pena either. She's just a fucking weirdo nut job. But Amanda Nunes, I don't think is the best personality in the world. But you know what? It might be good for Amanda Nunes because people don't know her. You know, Ariel's kind of always giving out she never does interviews and stuff, which is, you know, if you want to be a big star and media savvy and everything, that's what you should be doing. And she just doesn't do it. So getting herself out there like this,
if you want to get paid the most, if you want to get paid close to what you deserve or anywhere near that, you need to do that stuff.
Yeah, so it might be important for her, but it also might be a thing that if people, you know, talk about it and they hear Julia or Amanda Nunes is kind of saying stuff and being a character, maybe it's something you will tune in for. But I just don't think it is. That the show has it feels like everyone. Look, it happens an awful lot in life. I always say with Netflix TV shows, right? The first season on a Netflix TV show now these days is this group of people who have no money, who are doing something like really exceptional or really funny or really crazy, right? And in the second series of every Netflix documentary is rich people going around dealing with how their fame is affecting them. That's what it is. And it feels like, you know, if anyone watched that series Cheer, it's about cheerleaders and stuff. It's a bit of a crazy season. The whole last season, okay, there was controversy and all. One of them was caught for sexual abuse and stuff. But aside from that, even their coach and stuff was she went to like Dancing with the Stars, and they were all like having to balance you know, all these things, and also like not acting up to the cameras, and they were being like very, very quiet and not saying anything controversial. It feels like TUF is like that now. Everyone knows what they're in for. Everyone knows, like, you know, no one wants to be the next Matt Hughes and TUF. No one wants to put themselves out there like that. No one wants to be the next Junie Browning or anything. There's going to be no one, and I
or even Rich Franklin, you know, and make fun of.
Yeah, exactly. No one wants to be that. We all kind of know what it is, and that's taken away the luster from it. Like, a lot of people used to complain, oh, there's too much drama and there's too much bollocks in the household. But there came a time where we'd so many fights on that the fights in TUF weren't special anymore, because before, when there was only 4 or 6 or 10 events a year, having TUF on every week for 10 weeks or whatever it was fantastic. Like 10 weeks in a row with fights, that was amazing. Now the next 8 weeks in a row we've UFC every week, then we've 1 week break, and then we've another 7 in a row, I think, after that. It's just not exceptional anymore, and that's why I think they should change TUF. Like, they should change TUF and do a Dana White Contender Series as TUF or something like that, because what they have at the moment is not going to work. Like, and not to just come on and say, you know, the same thing that everyone else says in TUF and everything like that. I think there can be a place for it. They can keep the name, but they have to find the new guys. And rather than just giving up on it, let's roll back about 5 years and talk about like new ideas to make it better. Maybe it's a comeback season again or something like that, where all the fighters are known. Or I saw people saying, you know, fighters actually in the UFC getting paid well to be on TUF and having fights. There's loads of fighters that would love to fight, you know, over and over and over again. But, you know, having young up and coming fighters in that house all the time is not what it is designed for. It never was designed for that, and it's not going to work that way. And to get the fighters to be stars is not going to work either, because they know they know what's going on, and they know, you know, the what the show is about. So yeah, it's just not going to work. Anyway, I said we start off with something a little bit different this week, because you know, there are there are things that pop up. It's been a quiet while, like, in terms of news and everything like that. Do you know one other thing as well that I wanted to touch on before we jump into the fights next week? See Max Holloway has like been declared fit and is going to like cut weight to be a backup fighter for the title fight that he pulled out of. That is bizarre. What's your take on Max Holloway? Like, Max Holloway, over the last few years, he had that incident where Bisping saw basically that he was allegedly concussed or injured, anyway, whatever you want to call it. Then he was out for a while. He came back and he looked great. and now he has this again. I don't know what it is. I'm not saying it's concussion related or anything like that, but it just all feels a bit odd with Max Holloway the last while, doesn't it, Graeme?
Yeah, well, I thought he kind of got over that. Maybe it's unrelated, maybe he just picked up an injury and he said to the UFC, here, this injury is going to be touch and go if I'm going to make it or not. And they said, here, we're not taking that risk. We're going to take you out of the fight. And turns out he got back to training quicker and now he's the alternate. Maybe that's how it happened and it's completely unrelated, but it's hard to really know. But, that the incident with Bisping, or the incident with the weight cut when Bisping called him out on it and stuff, was definitely worrying. And I had definitely some, worries about him going forward after that. But he seems to, inside the cage anyway, seems to have shown that no ill effects from that I can see anyway. So, with Max Holloway, I'd give him the benefit of the doubt here that maybe that this is, until we hear more, that this is unrelated and maybe just an injury that he wasn't sure if he was going to be able to make it with.
I think if he's fit, just give him the shot. Like, if you wanted to do that anyway, and now I didn't think they should have done that anyway. I think it's, I actually don't think it's a blessing in disguise, because if they're giving him the shot next year, just wasting time, you might as well just give it to him now. Like, I don't know. I don't think it makes much sense, especially the fact that we're still a good bit out from the fight. It's not like it's in 2 or 3 weeks or anything like that. So, I think it's a very bizarre one altogether. Even give him another fight or whatever. If he can be fit, let's do it. But, yeah, it's just a weird situation.
You would think if maybe he thought he'd need surgery and didn't need surgery or something, but you would think, as you're saying, that once it's kind of been established that he's going to be fit, that they could just, say sorry about that. We're gonna pay you to be an alternate.
Yeah, it is a thing as well. It is a thing as well with the UFC. Like, Max Holloway could have said that to them, and they were like, "Well, okay, you're not going to be fit. We have to move on. We have to find someone else." And Max Holloway was like, "Grand." And then it just popped up and he was fine. And now, I just let me reiterate again, I'm not saying it's connected to, concussion or a weight cut or anything like that. I'm merely saying there's been a litany of things over the last few, not a litany, but a few things over the last years. It could have been a freaking, a torn hamstring for all I know. I've absolutely no idea. But, yeah, anyway, I said to mention that, just, cause I thought that was bizarre, we live in a very bizarre sport, I suppose, but that was one of the most bizarre stories, I suppose we've heard in a while. But, let's talk a little bit about, the massive UFC 271 card coming up this weekend. Oh, what a card. What a card this is, from top to bottom. Absolutely fantastic. Even very, very low down on the card. You have, a few undefeated fighters. You've AJ Dobson, who's 6-0. You've Mike Mathena, 3-0. You have some very, very experienced fighters as well. Silva de Andrade with over 30 fights. Fighting Sergey Mozarov with over 20 fights. Then you have Carlos Alberg, who's been very, very exciting. Hinata Maikana versus Alexander Hernandez. What a fight that is. William Knight, that big muscle-bound madman, he's on this card as well. Your favourite fighter, Matt Schnell.
Ooh, Matt Schnell.
Go on, sing more.
Can't you smell Matt Snell?
He's fighting Alex Perez, Roxanne Modafferi in allegedly her retirement fight, fighting Ireland's own Casey O'Neill. And your
Matt, if you listen to the podcast, come out to that smell by Lineker Skinner, so we know.
Yeah, so we know. So we know. Kyler Phillips is on the card. Bobby Green versus Nazareth Hakuras. What a fight that is. Jared Cannonier, Derrick Brunson, Tai Tuivasa, Derrick Lewis, and in the main event is the Adesanya versus Robert Whitaker, the former champion. I love this card so much. Not to big it up or anything. I know we're supposed to be unbiased. This is my unbiased opinion, though. This is, what a card. And there mightn't be that many stars on it per se, even top to bottom, but there's just so many good fights. What one is standing out to you? What one will you be, if you fell asleep in the middle of the night, what would be the first one you'll be watching on Sunday morning?
I'm definitely looking forward to the Adesanya Whitaker rematch.
Aside from that, we get to that.
Yeah. Besides that, maybe Cannonier and Brunson, or even Hakuras and Bobby Green. There's some very good fights there. I'd probably go with Cannonier and Brunson. It's a really interesting matchup. They're both on kind of a roll, and they're both interesting matchups for each other, and it could go a lot of ways, this fight. I'm very interested to see how it looks and how it turns out. I actually watched, I did a rewatch Cannonier versus Hermansson there the other day, because obviously the Hermansson fight was coming up this weekend. And I was kind of thinking about it afterwards when I saw this fight was happening next week. And you know what? I feel like
I feel like Cannonier might struggle a little bit against a guy like Brunson early doors anyway, because Brunson isn't as wild as he once was. I think he's training in Sanford MMA now, so he's fighting more technically and more intelligently, and as we've seen.
But he's still unorthodox.
Yeah,
and
he
a bit,
is, yeah.
Yeah, janky.
Yeah. And
the Dean Amin, Keith Jardine too.
He does. But Hermansson had a bit of success when he was like that, when he was a bit janky, when he was a bit weird in it. When Cannonier was able to kind of take the initiative and land a few jabs down through the middle, that was when Hermansson had a few problems. And I feel like if Brunson can turn it into a bit of a wild fight with a big proviso of, like, don't get hit in that wild fight, I think he can have an advantage. It's difficult as well sometimes to tell, but I think he'll have an advantage, especially in the clinch and in the wrestling as well. I'll be talking more about this fight and watching more tape on it coming up here as well. We were actually sprung on this podcast a little bit early, but I haven't watched Cannonier there recently, and I bet a Brunson there not too long ago as well. It really is a fight that I think, both of them enjoy landing the right shot kind of at the right time in a mad fight, you know. But Cannonier maybe likes it a little bit more controlled, but he's happy to do it in all different sorts of ways, I think. And I feel like the fact that Brunson has kind of changed and fighting a more control game means this will be two very similar sort of game plans, if you want to put it that way, against each other, with maybe a little bit more wrestling on Brunson's side. But that'll decide as well probably who fights for the title next. We'll talk later about the Strickland and Hermansson fight and how that worked out. But that could be really the decider for the title, and I'm really looking forward to that. Another one that could be a decider for the title as well is the co-main event, Derrick Lewis versus Tuivasa. You know, you don't know what's going to happen with John Jones and with Francis and with the interim titles and Gagne and Stipe and all of that. So, look, if Derrick Lewis goes in there and wins again, he's not too far away. He's never too far away, Derrick Lewis is, especially if it's an interim title and you know he's willing to take a fight. You know, a lot of the heavyweights at the very top aren't willing to take a fight, and rightly so in a lot of different respects. But Tuivasa as well, he's been on a great run recently. Probably one of the stars of, like, the lockdown MMA, just because of the shoeies and the madness and walking out the Barbie girl and different things like that. And he has a chance here. Like, I find this fight very hard to pick. I haven't looked at the betting odds yet, but I think Derrick Lewis will probably be a favourite. But Tuivasa is a good boxer, hits hard, and he will be the type of fighter that Derrick Lewis usually doesn't face, in that people usually want to, like, put Derrick Lewis on the back foot or put him on his arse or whatever. Tuivasa will be absolutely happy to stand and trade with Derrick Lewis, you know, and he won't be dancing around him, say, like a Cyril Gagne or someone would. So that'd be fun. What do you think? I think someone's getting knocked out, I'd say. Someone is getting knocked out.
Yeah, I think Derrick Lewis will probably be the one doing the knocking out, but, you know, it definitely is an interesting fight. It's a big step up for Tuivasa. You know, he's been fighting good guys on his way up, but not the level of competition that Derrick Lewis has been facing. And Derrick Lewis recently, we kind of maybe were unsure whether losing the weight and kind of going to a more technical style or all the kind of changes in his game that he's made over the last few years, we didn't know if it would really work, and maybe he should stick to being the guy who looks for the one punch crazy power finish. And he seems to be able to kind of mold the two into one recently. And I think, you know, from what we've seen before, I'd expect him to show again that he's developing even more, and he hasn't lost that power. He's shown that. I think this is maybe a little bit too much for Tuivasa. I think, you know, he might give some problems to Derrick Lewis early, and, you know, he does have big power, so I wouldn't be that surprised if he's able to put Lewis away. But if I was a betting man, I'd definitely be putting money on, or I'd definitely be backing Lewis to be the one doing the knocking out. But, you know, in a big heavyweight fight with two guys who, as you said, are willing to exchange on the feet, anything can happen. But, you know, Derrick Lewis, I think he hits different.
Yeah, he does, but Tuivasa hits very hard as well. Like, the problem both of these lads usually have is that people will not want to face them in that sort of fight. They won't want to go toe-to-toe landing shots. As I said, they'll either want to take them down or dance around them, both guys. And whenever that doesn't happen, they usually both get knockouts, you know. So I think it'd be very interesting. Like, I do think Tuivasa is the better technical striker, and he hits really, really hard as well. It's not as if it's just a technical striker against a guy who's getting better technically and has power for days. I think they both have power for days. I don't know. I'd be leaning slightly to Tuivasa, but maybe Derrick Lewis will come out and take him down and fucking wrestle him all day. If I was in Derrick Lewis's corner, that's probably what I'd be telling him to do. Like, but
yeah, you probably look back to those kind of that Junior Dos Santos, Ivanov, Spivak fights, and Tuivasa still has to prove to me, like, a win over Stefan Struve, Hunsucker, Greg Hardy, they're good wins. Sakai, they're good wins, but they're definitely no Derrick Lewis, and I think. He's stepping up again, and he's got to answer a lot of questions. And I think Derrick Lewis has looked very sharp recently, the sharpest he's ever looked. He seems to be over the kind of back problems that seem to haunt him for years. And I think this is going to be Derrick Lewis's fight. But as you said, when you hit as hard as Tuivasa does, as either of these guys do, like, heavyweights always hit hard, but these guys I think probably are hitting harder than the average heavyweight. So. Derrick Lewis gets into exchanges, and that's what he wants to get into. It's obviously playing with fire, and then it could go either way. But as I said, I think Derrick Lewis will get the job done.
It wouldn't be a Derrick Lewis fight if I didn't incorrectly pick him. So I always pick against Derrick Lewis, and he almost always wins. So take my pick in that one with a bit of a
but like, if you think about how far he's come since, like you mentioned on Twitter there, we've been doing this podcast for 7 years. I think I've been doing it with you for about 4 or 5. And, we talked about Derrick Lewis a lot and criticised him a lot and kind of laughed at him a bit, made jokes, like, nothing too harsh or anything, but, we didn't really take him too seriously, maybe. And, the Derrick Lewis that's here now and the Derrick Lewis back then is a completely different beast.
Yeah, a way, way better fighter. Couldn't give enough props to Derrick Lewis. And I'm really looking forward to, that's one of the fights I'm looking forward to the most on it, without a shadow of a doubt. Let's touch on a couple more before we get to the main event. One I'm very interested in is Nazareth Hakuras versus Bobby Green. Like, I feel like Green is a great yardstick for where you are in that division. And Hakuras, he's 13-4 now in his career. When he came into the UFC, I was like, he's on the kind of the fast track to the top, but he's had those, the setbacks. Martin Hell beat him by decision. He lost to Drew Dober and then Dan Hooker as well. I think that was that last time out. It was, yeah. So that was a setback for him there. He's only, he hasn't been able to get a big run together, but the Bobby Green fight is the sort of fight that I think will suit both guys, to be honest. But I think it's a massive, massive test for the kind of the boxing acumen of both guys and who will win the boxing kind of game. I think it's like a similar enough one to the co-main event which we both talked about. Like Bobby Green, he reminds me a little bit of Sean Strickland. He's a bit mad, he's a character, but he has unbelievably good boxing skills. Hakuras is a little more not a little more well-rounded. He fights in a more well-rounded manner, I would say, but he can box very, very well as well. It's one of those ones where I'd say Hakuras will probably be a big favourite coming into this, and I'd probably pick him as well. But if I woke up on Sunday morning and I found out that Bobby Green had won, I don't think it'd shock me too much either. And if they got fight of the night, I don't think it'd probably shock me too much either as well. I just think this is going to be a really good technical fight, honestly. If you're to ask me how would it go, I think it'll probably be 15 minutes. It'll probably be 29-28, 29-28, 28-29. It'll be one of them, and everyone will go home happy. What do you think of this one? Would you favour Hakuras in it, or do you think Bobby Green's experience? Would you?
I actually think Green. I think he's definitely inconsistent, and he's a hard guy to pick with much confidence. But I think in his last fight against Quinta, he looked really good, and we've seen this from Bobby Green before, where he's looked really good, and you think, he's really coming into his own, and he comes in and kind of doesn't perform, or kind of trash talks while getting punched in the face and stupid things like that. But I think, as you said, this could be a really close fight, some really close rounds, but I think Bobby Green might be able to do enough with his boxing and his jab on the outside to... Sorry, my dogs are going crazy.
The dogs don't like it. The dogs don't like it, Graeme. They're picking
the dogs aren't happy with that pick, but I'm sticking with Bobby Green, even if the dogs disagree.
They're picking Hakuras. Yeah, it's really one I'm looking forward to as well. you know, we joked earlier about Matt Schnell, but Matt Schnell is ranked number 9 at the moment at 125, and Alex Perez is ranked number 4. So that's a big, important fight too. You know, I would probably slightly favour Perez there, even though I do believe in Matt Schnell and I believe in his improvements. I think Matt Schnell is one of these lads who's like a slow cooker. You know, he's a guy, I think, he's been around for a long time, from all the way back in that fucking MTV show back in the day, Danger, Uncaged. Do you remember that? And I feel like he has improved subtly and steadily. And I think he's not there yet, but I think in 2 years' time, Matt Schnell, he'll either be gone from the UFC and cut, or he'll be the champion. You know, I think he's one. I just feel like, maybe I'm wrong. I feel like he's kind of a slow improver that, you know, just holds on and learns. And I'm not picking him to win this fight, but if this fight happened in a while down the line, maybe he would, and I still would hold hope for him. You know, he's a guy. I said the same thing about Jamal Hill there recently after he lost to Paul Craig. Not that he was a slow one or anything. I actually think he'll be champion soon. But a loss isn't necessarily the worst thing for some of these people. And I would say that for Schnell here. We have to mention Casey O'Neill as well, you know, fighting out of, he's in Australia via Scotland, but I'm claiming her as well. I'm definitely claiming her.
Big win for Scotland in the Six Nations as well over England.
Oh, did they beat them?
She'll enjoy that.
I half heard about it. Yeah, Ireland won as well, so fair play to them. But yeah, that fight against Roxanne Mediferi, look, I don't think, it's a good test for her at 8-0, absolutely. Roxy's been around for years. What is it, a 2-time title challenger? Definitely once anyway. But, you know, I would say that will be pretty straightforward for Casey O'Neill, but we said that once before with Roxanne Mediferi when she went in there with
the Macy Barber fight. Though I think Macy Barber tore her ACL in the first round, so that's a little bit. But you know, anything can happen in MMA is probably what you're getting at there, and it's definitely true.
Before we get to the main event, what you fancy in Moicano versus Hernandez? That's another one. I think like maybe the technique versus Hernandez's early burst. He's a lad that can kind of slow down. I feel like Moicano will win the third round, and I don't know what happened in the first 2 rounds. What do you think?
I think he'll probably win the third round, and if it does go to the third round, he'll probably, you know, win a 2-1 decision or a 3-0, or I don't know what I'm saying, like that 29-28 or 30-27 decision. But yeah, he definitely needs to be careful early. But yeah, I think he should, if he has a good solid game plan and sticks to it, he should win a pretty, you know, clear-cut decision.
Beautiful. Right, let's talk about the main event. The middleweight title on the line, Robert Whitaker versus Israel Adesanya. Obviously, they fought once before. Oh, it feels like it was yesterday, but it was 2019, so it was 2.5 years ago. Whitaker has gone on to beat Darren Till, Jared Cannonier, as we mentioned earlier, and Kelvin Gastelum, so he's more than earned his shot at the title again. Adesanya has had a bit of an iffy time since. You know, he obviously went up in weight and lost to Sean Denny's guy, Jan Blachowicz. He beat Paulo Costa in kind of a fight that was a bit embarrassing, to be honest. Like, no one never thought Paulo Costa could beat him, I don't think. And he beat Marvin Vettori as well, who's a good challenger. Beat Yoel Romero as well in that one of the most boring fights to ever happen. So, look, he's gone 3-1 since. It's not a bad run or anything like that. But I think this fight is a lot different to the first one. I think Adesanya has a lot more tape on him now. Obviously, he has a loss as well, which is interesting. We'll break down the I suppose the X's and O's of the fight maybe in a second. But what have you thought since? Like, if you were to look at Adesanya, and he kind of won, you know, relatively handily in the first fight, finishing him midway through the second round. I'm sure I'll be doing that in a rewatch this week, so we'll go back and have a look at it. But would you give Robert Whitaker a big chance coming in this or in here, or is this a case of like, oh, he's just a challenger again that has come back around?
Well, yeah, I'm picking Adesanya to win it, but I do think Whitaker has a chance. You know, I don't think he's quite what he was before, you know, when he was at the top before he had kind of knee injuries and had to sit out and stuff like that. But he's definitely still a very dangerous fighter. And definitely very, you know, a big challenge for Adesanya. Probably the biggest challenge Adesanya has in the middleweight division. You know, Marvin Vettori and Paulo Costa are good fighters, but they're a lot more limited and less well rounded than Robert Whitaker. Robert Whitaker is going to offer him, he's going to offer questions, or he's going to ask him questions everywhere. But I think Adesanya, you know, he's just going to. do what he does, dance around and land better shots. And if he's careful, he should be able to wear Whitaker down and, you know, maybe take him out with another TKO or win a decision. But, you know, Whitaker, this is a very big fight for Whitaker. You know, if he doesn't win this fight, he's probably not going to get back there. I can't see Adesanya losing anytime soon if he doesn't lose to Whitaker here. But you never know in MMA. You know, he could fall off the top at any moment. But Whitaker's probably looking at this as a kind of last chance of getting at the title for in the near future. You know, if you have 2 losses to the same guy and he's on top for a long time, it's very hard to put yourself in a position to win this fight. But Whitaker has some good wins since he's lost to Adesanya, but he hasn't been that active. And, you know, the names on his record, Darrentil, Cannonier, Gastelum are good names, but he hasn't looked, in my opinion, Robert Whitaker hasn't looked quite the same dynamic-wise and speed-wise. I think, as I said, the injuries have taken a little bit out of him and he's not quite at the peak of his game like he was, and I think that's going to be a factor here. I think Adesanya is more, obviously a better striker, but has more, how would you say,
weapons?
Yeah, more weapons, but he definitely has more weapons, but he has more maybe patience than he used to have coming up. So maybe that'll make the fight turn into a longer fight than the first one and maybe a decision. And that's a dangerous thing to do against Robert Whitaker. He's definitely dangerous throughout the fight, but I see more methods of victory and more ways to win for Adesanya here. But it would be nice to see, you know, Whitaker put it up to him at least and make it a back and forth fight if he can. And you know, if he can do that and land a couple of his own shots, it could change everything. But I'd be pretty confident that Adesanya will get it done here.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. I don't necessarily agree with your point that he's slowed. I think he's changed his game in some ways. But I think you made a very good point there about this maybe being his last chance, because middleweight's not a great division, you know. Usually in MMA, you're a bit foolhardy to say, you know, someone could hold on to this fight for 5, 6, 7 defenses. Yeah,
the second I said that, I was like, yeah, I've said this before and it's been wrong. But looking at the names coming up, you know, nobody's really standing out to me there.
And look, we could both be wrong again. Absolutely, we both listened back to a podcast from like 3 years ago, and we were like frightfully wrong. I was saying like Cowboy Cerrone, he'd beat Colby.
Somebody was in contact asking about using some, and we were like, oh, what do we even say about that? To go back and listen to it, you're like, oh God.
Oh God, yeah, just the most ridiculous, not ridiculous shit, but like
some of it's right, but some of it's just like,
but it was it was before Colby kind of became Colby, and I was like, look, and Cowboy was still good, and I was like, look, Cowboy would probably beat him, and I'm like, wait, no, actually, he probably wouldn't. But anyway, what are we then saying? But yeah, I do look. It is one of those ones where Robert Whitaker needs to win it, and that adds a lot of pressure. You know, that's a lot of pressure. They talked about the first one with them being rivals, and you know, obviously they're in a similar part of the world over there, and they're fighting to be the dog, you know, the dominant guy, the big dog, the alpha over there, and that adds something extra to it, you know. And I'm not a big one for mind games and coming into it and all, but when it's, you know, when did they fight? Back in 2019, as I mentioned, 2.5, 3 years ago. That is a lot of time to think about someone. That is a lot of time to have, you know, memes coming at you and saying, oh yeah, you're good, but Izzy beat you and all of that. And, you know, conversely, it might be something that Adesanya overlooks and I think, I beat this guy once, I'll go in and I'll beat him easily again, like Rockhold against Bisping. Now, I don't necessarily think he'll do that, but there's a lot of pressure coming in here in terms of the fight, in terms of your future, but also in terms of like the back and forth. But
I'll say the tables have kind of turned in a way of like Adesanya coming up was looking at Whitaker and thinking, this is a guy I need to kind of beat, and now Whitaker obviously has been looking at this guy, he's only lost a middleweight, and thinking this is the champion and this is a guy I need to beat for the last 2.5 years. So, you know, maybe he's been watching and has I'm sure his team and him think they can implement some things that can, you know, improve their chances from the first fight, and things they've seen tells and things they've seen other fighters that have fought Adesanya do that maybe they can implement and stuff like that. So, you know, there could be something me and you are missing here, and that they've worked on, and they could come out and get it done here. And, you know, Whitaker's back as champion. So, you know, we're obviously we watch these fights closely, but for people like Whitaker and his camp, this is everything, and they've probably been, you know, studying this game, studying Adesanya's game since before they fought the first time, continuing until now.
And so is Eugene Behrman and Israel Adesanya himself, and they'll be adjusting things as well. So it's not just the adjustments, it's the adjustments to the adjustments are going to be big. But like, just to maybe get into those X's and O's and stuff, like, to me, Robert Whitaker, what makes him great is his ability to strike first. And, you know, you often hear that in MMA, like, be first, be the first fighter. And for me, as someone on the outside looking in, someone who fancies themselves a bit of a tactician in terms of looking at, you know, the equations, what works and what doesn't work without the ability or
bit of a Ralph Ragnick.
A bit of a Ralph Ragnick, yeah, the godfather of MMA tactics, as I like to call myself. The Shawnee press, as I call it. But I think what the Whitaker style is really breaking your attacks down before they happen. You know, Robert Whitaker is like a vaccine, you know? he puts some, he jabs in there.
Careful, you'll be cancelled here. Careful.
No, I'm not. No, I'm the opposite of cancelled. He puts the jab in, right? And then the virus comes at him, you know, the shots from the other side come at him, the ones that are going to really hurt him, but they're not as hurtful because he's landed first and now he's already, like, protected against yours that are coming for you. So, like, there you go. There's the clip. There's the clip for this week. Robert, the vaccine Whitaker. Bobby Knuckles, take it away. But yeah, I really think that's what he is. And that is something, that's the reason why he beat Yoel Romero. Like, he fought 10 rounds against Yoel Romero and didn't get knocked out. And the reason he did that is because Yoel Romero wins fights with massive, big attacks. And Robert Whitaker never let those attacks start because he attacked first. And he broke in there first. And he breaks your rhythm and doesn't allow you. Like, Yoel Romero as well, a very much a rhythm fighter. He'll wait and pounce. And if you're in there and you're waiting and Whitaker pounces, you can't get your pounce out. To do that against Adesanya is a very different thing, because Adesanya is more of a technical fighter. He's more of a cerebral fighter in terms of, like, 15 or 25 minutes of deep thinking, deep tactics throughout the fight, whereas Yoel Romero is a little bit more agricultural, I suppose you could say, while still being smart, while still being very effective. But I think that is a harder thing to do. That is a harder way to win a fight when you're fighting Adesanya, because if you strike first, then Adesanya will adjust his game, no longer be an attacking fighter and be more of a counter fighter, which at times he is anyway. You know, Adesanya can kind of do it all. So I think for Whitaker, look, we know for Adesanya what he wants to do. He fakes a lot. He tries to draw you out. He counters you. He tries to land big shots. He throws with lots of variety. I think variety is the most important thing in MMA. Absolutely brilliant. The problem is when he fought someone like a Blachowicz, who was able to jab very well with him, who was as big as him, who was as strong as him, who was not getting knocked out, who has big power, and makes him respect him in every area he struggled, and then he took him down. Robert Whitaker doesn't have the technical ability that Adesanya has. He is not going to, like, outstrike him in a technical striking match over 25 minutes. Could he turn it into a 25-minute brawl where he's going forward non-stop and you know, like, say, a Cain Velasquez versus Junior Dos Santos, dirty boxing for 25 minutes?
Damage on him in the first round and have him kind of struggling for the rest of the fight.
Yeah, he could absolutely do that. But I do think it needs to be a mixture from Robert Whitaker. As you said, put some damage on him in the first round, put him against the fence, dirty boxing, take him down. I think takedowns are huge in this. And we said it many, many, many times in this podcast throughout the last 7 years. It's our anniversary. Happy birthday to us. If you don't succeed with a takedown, do not give up on it. Robert Whitaker, if he gives up on these takedowns after not getting 2 or 3 on Saturday night, he is screwed. He will lose the fight. I really do think he will lose the fight. And not just, you know, I don't think Robert Whitaker needs 10 takedowns to go in and win the fight by any means. Maybe 1 or 2, or maybe he doesn't even need any. But he has to threaten with them. He has to threaten with different things. Because if you don't bring variety against if he
makes it a kickboxing match, the chances of him winning it just go way down.
Yeah, so slim. So I think it's a very, very interesting fight. A really, really interesting fight. I'm a big fan of Robert Whitaker. I would pick him to beat almost every guy in that middleweight division, probably apart from Adesanya. And I don't even know who I'm picking yet, but what way do you break down? Is there, like, if you were to pick both of their methods of victory, what would they be?
I think Adesanya could get the TKO or the decision, and Whitaker could get the TKO or the decision. I don't really see a submission here unless it's some kind of knockdown or very tired situation where something like that happens. It's definitely not out of the realms of possibility of a submission, but I'd be very surprised. So I think both guys definitely have ways to win it, but I think Whitaker kind of has to make it happen more. Adesanya's going to be happy to kind of do what he does and let the fight kind of develop. And I think for Whitaker, he's got to make sure that Adesanya can't get into his rhythm. As you said, even if you can't get the takedown, even if you can just push him up against the cage, even if you can't push him up against the cage, just the threat of the takedown, just to him to know that if he does overcommit on a strike, that he will face a takedown attempt. You need to put that into Adesanya's head. If he doesn't do that, as you said, if he gets a couple of takedown attempts shrugged off and he just kind of gives up on that, then it's bad news. He still has a chance of getting a knockout because he does hit hard, and Adesanya is a very good striker and all that stuff, but he can get hit, and if you hit somebody in the right spot, they'll go down. So it's definitely there. But he could try and win a decision here, but he needs to, as you said, mix in grappling, push him up against the cage, make it dirty, try wear on him. Colby Covington him, you know what I mean? Just make it dirty, John Fitch, and just grind on him. But that's going to be hard to do. It's not really Whitaker's style.
He can do a Ken Velasquez sort of style though, which is gritty and dirty as well. Even Colby. He
needs to be able to put damage on him for that though, and there's definitely possibilities of this, but I think Robert Whitaker's got to make something happen here, and he's got to kind of start making it happen early, and if he doesn't do that, it's just going to slip away from him through round after round and round, and then he's going to need to get desperate, and that's when he could end up getting finished.
And don't forget too, Robert Whitaker qualified for the Commonwealth Games in wrestling. That guy can wrestle. He's absolutely no mug.
That was before the knee injury as well, though. But definitely the technique is there. The technique is there, definitely. Yeah.
Very interesting. Right, another big fight as well next week. One championship or one FC. I refuse to call it one championship. Have a card, and there's lots of kickboxing and different things on it. But the main event is Bibiana Fernandez versus John Lineker. What a fucking fight that is. I've been a massive fan of Bibiana Fernandez for years and years and years. Unfortunately, we never got to see him in the UFC, but he has been, he's 24-4 now. He's beaten some good guys down through the years, beaten the likes of Martin and Gwynn and others as well, while never kind of being able to come over and maybe have that massive fight. He's beaten Joe Warren as well back in the day, and he's fought Uriah Faber very early in his career. So I'm really looking forward to that. John Lineker is always exciting, and 5 rounds of that, I'll sign me up for that any day. I'm looking forward to that. I would pick Bibiana Fernandez, I think, to win it. I don't think Bibiana's a bit older now as well. I don't think maybe he is what he used to be. I haven't seen loads of him recently, but what I have seen, I don't think he is that special fighter. I genuinely think Bibiana Fernandez at one stage he would have come into the UFC and been champion. That's how much I rated him. I think he was really, really good. He
hasn't been that active as well recently, and a few dodgy enough split decisions in there as well.
I think he had an issue with the promotion or something, and that's why he wasn't fighting. So, but that never helps, being inactive. So, who would you pick to win that one?
It's a tough one. Bibiana Fernandez definitely, he definitely, as you said, he was a big prospect that never really came to fruition, and never really made the move over, and we never really, probably will never know how good he actually was or is. But if you look at his record, there's a few, Reece McLaren, he won a split decision there in 2016, and that was only 5 fights ago for him. And then he has Martin Nguyen, split decision win. And lost to Kevin Bellington by split decision, then fought Kevin Bellington twice again and beat him both times, and hasn't fought in 2.5 years since then. So I think John Lineker has obviously been more active, and maybe he's not fighting the best guys either, but I'd probably just lean towards John Lineker to get it done by decision. But it's hard to know.
Beautiful. Right, let me throw it over to Sean Sheehan to tell you about Sean Strickland versus Jack Hermansson. Take it away, Shawnee. Thank you very much, Shawnee. Welcome back here to a very, very, very stormy Newcastle West as we take you through the Hermansson versus Strickland card. And you know what? It was a card that started off really, really well. Halfway through it, I was taking my notes and I was thinking, oh, this is going to be a little fun into the podcast here when I pop on at 3:22 a.m. But it took a bit of a turn, to be honest. It was very, very good and then turned into very boring for the most part as we got towards the main card. So let me run you through it and some of the big outcomes, I suppose, from the card, and I'll give a bigger breakdown then of the main card. So Malcolm Gordon versus Dennis Bonder opened up the card. That ended in a really gruesome arm injury where Bondar's arm actually snapped after he was in an armbar, and then he went to armbar, and then he went to post from kind of a takedown or a transition, and it snapped. Now, it was one of those ones where if you saw it by itself, you're like, oh, how did that happen? And it wasn't as if it wasn't, the McGregor one where he broke his ankle and it kind of twisted in that fashion. It wasn't one like that. It wasn't like in a twisted motion. It was literally just kind of laying it down, and it snapped. But it was already dislocated, I would say, and it was already in bad shape. But he ended up losing that. There was Gordon was attacking all the time. I've said it a lot before. When you see guys or ladies with kind of new entries into the UFC or maybe a little bit lower level. Now these guys both have good records. They both have around 20 fights, and one is 14 wins, one is 16 wins. So not the lowest of levels. I'm not criticizing them at all. You do see more transitions with the jiu-jitsu or wrestling transitions that give more opportunities to get in armbars and things like that. And that's what happened here. Gordon caught him in one. And ended up winning the fight with that. The second fight of the night was Jason Witt against Philip Rowe. Jason Witt managed to get Rowe down for the whole of the first round. Looked like he was dominating him there, but Rowe came out vicious, precise knockout at the very start of the second round. It was not at the very start. It was halfway through the round, but beautiful, precise 1-2 right down the middle. Absolutely put Jason Witt to sleep. So a beautiful, beautiful KO there. And a good comeback as well. You see a lot of people when they're taken down and they're being out-wrestled, not being able to make it back up and come back, but he absolutely did. Same couldn't be said for Danilo Marquez, who was completely out-wrestled and destroyed by Jailton Almeida, who moves to 15-2. This guy looks like the real deal. I saw a few people call him the Brazilian Khabib, and that's all you need to know about him. He is so strong on top. He is legitimate, and he's a 205 pounder as well, so that division is not the best, and he's strong. If you're out muscling other 205ers in the way he does, you're strong, and he definitely, so he's a 100% one to look out for. He won by a ground and pound, vicious ground and pound in the end there, so very, very good stuff from him. I predicted Alexis Davis would win by decision against Julia Stoliarenko, and that's exactly what she did. And wrestling is how I predicted she'd do it as well, and she did that as well. Won the first and third. Very close second. The first was close as well. I thought Stoliarenko had her in a very, very good armbar at one stage, but there was lots of effective grappling. Well, at two stages she had her in armbars, but one stage very, very effective. And a lot of effective striking as well from Davis. This fight started off well and got kind of progressively worse, I would say, early. Stoliarenko kind of bloodied up Davis. They both had big red heads in the second. Davis looked like a cherry coming out for the third round, or in the middle of the second round even. But she did enough to win the unanimous decision there. Not too much to write home about, but a good solid win for Alexis Davis coming back again. The star of the night undoubtedly was Chidi Njokuani, Bang Bang, the brother of Anthony Njokuani, who's been around the UFC for years. Fought a couple of weeks ago as well on Eagle FC. But Chidi looked really good here. Came out and won in 16 seconds. It was almost too easy for him. 1-2 right down the middle, bang bang. Chidi wins in 16 seconds. So a very, very good win there for him. Hakeem Dawood he's such a good fighter, and we talked about it in the pre-show over on YouTube with Spencer, and he kind of said, his nickname is Mean. He needs to be a little bit more mean, and that's the thing with Dawood. If he did get a little bit more mean, if he was more of a finisher, it just feels he's trying to be too smart and too precise and too fancy. If he needs a bit of dog in him. He needs a little bit of dog in him. If he gets that in his career, this guy could go all the way. Beat Mike Trezano over 3 rounds. Nothing much to write home about. Then the John Castaneda fight, lots of forward pressure in that one from him, lots of shots. Reminding me of Robert Whitaker versus Yoel Romero, where Miles Johns was waiting on the back foot, and for the big strike and the big knockout, and it never came. But you know who did come for John Castaneda, who got the finish in the third round, and it was all about that pressure and all about putting Miles Johns in the back foot, and it got him a great win there. Fight at night, without a shadow of a doubt, as I predicted, Julian Rosa versus Stephen Peterson. Just what can you say about this one? A brilliant fight. First round for Rosa. The second round, Rosa almost got finished, but didn't almost finish Peterson with a spinning back fist. For me, it was 1-1 entering the third. But Rosa did do enough, I think, in the third. Very, very close, right up until the end. Well, I thought Rosa just did about enough. Split decision. The fight at night, as I'm recording this, hasn't been announced, but if that's not fight at night, there's something wrong. Rubbish fight at night goes to Brian Battle versus Treshawn Gore, 3-1 against 7-1. And then Battle came out and he was like, I'm the real tough champion. And it was one of the most embarrassing things ever. He had his tough trophy with him. And he was like talking about the picks from the start of TUF and everything. I was like, oh my God. He was like Al Bundy talking about his high school fucking football and stuff. One of the most embarrassing post-fight interviews I've ever seen in the history of the UFC. No one has watched this season of TUF. No one gives a shit apart from you. Like, you're supposed to be a tough champion. You're supposed to be like a really good fighter coming through. Let's talk about, the middleweight championship. Let's talk about who you're going to be fighting next. Let's not talk about some fucking coach who picked you 2 years ago on a show that no one watched with a stupid fucking glass trophy. Like, get over yourself. Awful. Anyway. Brendan Allen then, on 2 days' notice, beat Sam Alvey. Alvey was actually throwing more in this fight than he does normally, and he caught Brendan Allen a few times, but Allen, he just walked through every single shot. It looked so easy for him, Allen hurt him late in round one as well, almost finished him. Alvey did land a couple of shots, and I wouldn't say that Allen hurt at any stage, but definitely landed a few. Then in round two, Allen came out. He went low to the body and then right over the top and hurt Sam Alvey badly. Went to the ground, got him in the rear naked choke, and there was nothing Sam Alvey could do. So I think Alvey's lost 7 of his last 8 in the UFC, and that will be that for Sam Alvey in the UFC, unfortunately. What a run for Sam Alvey, but there you go, it ends. The star tonight, as everyone predicted, without a shadow of a doubt, is Shavkat Rakhmonov. Learn how to say that name. Memorize it, spell it, Rakhmonov, because this guy is going all the way. He's 15-0, 170. It's a stacked 170 division. You're coming up against Hamzat, you're coming up against Sean Brady, you're coming up against Colby, you're coming up against Kamaru Usman, Gilbert Burns, and all the rest of them, Vicente Luque, Wonderboy. But this guy has it all. He can wrestle. His transitions are amazing. His throws. His striking is fantastic. He can hit hard. Oh, he really does have it all. And Karen Harris, I kind of said on the pre-show, I didn't think he was a great prospect or a great fighter. He did it well, I thought, tonight. He tried. No, I still don't think he's a great fighter. But Rakhmonov is miles ahead of lots of people in that division. I would say he's miles ahead of everyone, bar maybe 4 or 5 people in that division, honestly. I think he can go right in there, right at the very top of that division and cause problems for people. This guy is legit. If you don't know him, you need to know him. Shavkat Rakhmonov, look him up, watch that fight from last night. This guy is legit. Then the co-main event, 2 Dana White Contender Series alums, 8-0 and 8-2, Nick Maximov, Punahele Soriano. One of the most boring fights you'll ever see in your life. Maximov kind of took him down for 3 rounds. I'm not even going to talk anymore about this. Soriano landed a few shots early. Probably did enough to win the first. Some people are saying he did enough to win the second. I think they're judging a bit too literally if you're saying that. But, you can argue it, absolutely. There's an argument there. But I honestly don't give a shit. It was a split decision, a terrible, terrible fight. Just like you got to this right, and you had Battle versus Gore on the to open up the main card. Was it to open up the main card? No, Rosa was a great fight. So Rosa Peterson opened up the main card, great fight, and you had Gore versus Battle, awful. Like Sam Alvey getting beaten on 2 days' notice. Rakhmonov in really a squash match, but that was fun. But then you had Maximov, just the most boring fight of all time, and then you came to the main event, and honestly, this was another poor fight. Number 6 and number 7, I think, ranked middleweights in the world. And it says all you need to know about the middleweight division. Like, I've kind of been half joking, half serious in the last few weeks, talking about the middleweight division being absolutely rubbish. And look, both of these guys are good fighters and all that, but and lots of the guys in the middleweight division are good fighters. But if you look at the level of the number 6 and 7 ranked in other divisions, it is streets away from this. Like, now let's run through a few of them here. The number 7 and 8 ranked in the let's just pick out a division here. Featherweight, Ireland Allen and Giga Chikadze. Lightweight, Tony Ferguson, Dan Hooker. Maybe not Tony Ferguson, but it's still Wonderboy Thompson, Neil Magny. Dominic Reyes and Volkan Ozdemir. Even at heavyweight, fucking Christoph. Well, maybe not heavyweight, but Tisha Torres and Michelle Watterson, Joanne Wood, Andrea Lee. Someone was saying flyweight, actually. Flyweight was bad. Joanne Wood and Andrea Lee, Jessica, like, okay, maybe. But, this division is so bad. But this fight, look, the first round, I'll run you through it. Jack Hermansson just couldn't take him down. I thought the jabs were enough for Shawnee Strickland. Second round, just jab and jab and jab and jab. Late knockdown as well, absolutely took the round. It was relatively close, but the knockdown absolutely took it. No takedown attempts. Third round, just all Sean Strickland. Nothing to be said about it. Fourth round, it was better from Jack Hermansson, but still he kind of got jabbed up for most of it. Close round, and the fifth was probably the most close round apart from the first. Sean Strickland ended up getting a bloody nose, but then towards the last minute kind of hit him with a few shots, and then with 10 seconds to go in the shittiest division in the UFC, like, says, come on, let's throw down hands, starts calling Hermansson a pussy, and then the fight ends. It was like, alright, why didn't you do that in the rest of the fucking fight if you're so tough? Like, it was embarrassing stuff. One judge gave 3 rounds to Hermansson. Now, I haven't got him yet. I would guess it was 1, 4, and 5. Which you actually could argue, honestly, but it looks like the worst card of the year. But it was such a bad fight that I don't even care, to be honest. I honestly don't care. I'll look for it here. I'll pause this in a second and see if it came up. It did actually come up here now. So let's look. Oh, so it was 1, 3, and 5 that Sal Giamato had it for. So the third round, yeah, I have in my notes here just all Sean. So not great that third round. Yeah. So I wouldn't agree with that. Look, the right man won the fight. It was a good display from Sean Strickland in that he fought really safe, took almost no shots until the 5th round, and won at a canter. Is this going to take him to a fight against Whitaker or to Adesanya and beat them? I would say no. Like, even if you look at a Cannonier or a Brunson fighting next week, like, Brunson is not just going to stand there and take it like Hermansson did. He's not going to give up on his takedowns. Cannonier's an interesting one because sometimes he shows up and he's really good, but I could see him getting jabbed apart, honestly, by Strickland, but he's a lot bigger than him as well. Like, I actually believed in Strickland's ability more after the last fight than I did after this one, which is odd, but I'm not going to criticize him too much. It was just a bad fight, and it was a fight that he could have made a lot easier than himself, but that he didn't. And Hermansson, I thought it was a dreadful display by Hermansson. Myself and Graeme, I think we talked earlier on this podcast even about Whitaker not giving up on takedown at him. Sorry, just in general, people not giving up on him. And this guy gave up on him after the first round. And Bisping was saying, why wouldn't you give up on him? They're not working. Keep going to get him to work. Do different things. You don't have to go for like a double leg from halfway across the cage every time. Try a single leg. Try running the pipe. Try pushing him against the cage and body locking him. Try pulling guard. Try fucking anything rather than standing on the feet for 5 rounds getting the head jabbed off you. Try anything. And he just didn't. He fought a losing fight, let's be honest here, and he lost. And he deserved to lose. It was a bad display, and Sean Strickland deserved to win. So, that's the card. From top to bottom, there wasn't much more in it than that. I thought the commentary was really, really good. Brendan Fitzgerald, Paul Felder, and Michael Bisping obviously had a few judging mishaps and things like that in terms of the commentary, but overall, very, very good, very enjoyable to watch. And to be honest, I really enjoyed the card for the most part. The end was a bit grueling. At least I'm getting early to bed, and early to bed is like 4:30, so it's not too bad. But alright everyone, I will leave it there. As again, I said, just a quick reminder, if you are signed up on Patreon, please check like your payment details, because there's like a glitch on the Patreon website, or if you have a new card or your Revolut, like doesn't send you a notification or something. Some people have notifications turned off. If you could turn on those notifications, it'd be absolutely fantastic. Really, really appreciate it. And if you haven't signed up, now would be a great time. I've got full time and we've lost like 20% of our Patreon people, so I kind of need it. Not to be begging here or anything, but fucking sign up, please. I have a new computer coming next week as well, so hopefully we'll have more stuff in different ways on different platforms. So if you want to support that, you know, maybe more videos and stuff like that, hopefully coming. Well, I ordered my thing last week. Hopefully it'll be coming in the next 2 to 3 weeks, and maybe after Bellator then, once I get everything set up and everything like that. So by the time March comes, hopefully I'll have kind of changed the game a little bit, and things will be getting, gone up, and the quality of stuff will be going up. But the quality's been pretty good, and there's 1,000 podcasts up on Patreon right now, so if you sign up there, you can listen to all 1,000 of them. It's the very start of the month still here, so you have a good time, to do it now. Alright, enough of the begging, enough of the giving out. Thanks everyone for listening. If you haven't clicked to subscribe on this yet, it's free. Wherever you're listening to this, if it's SoundCloud, iTunes, Spotify, please just click subscribe, click the notification thing. It only comes up once a week, so you're not going to be getting notifications all day, every day, or every week. We literally only release a podcast once a week. So if you're on the audio feed of this, click the notification. It'll come up on a Sunday, and you can listen to it, you know, while you're playing a few games of FIFA, or while you're on the road to drive, you know, back home from college, or, you know, if you're going to training, or if you're doing a bit of gardening, or whatever you're doing, you can listen to the Severe MMA podcast. Alright everyone, thank you very much for listening on the 7th anniversary of the Severe MMA podcast. I will tell you, we will see you all next Tuesday. Or Sunday, or Monday, whatever it is. If you would like to support the podcast and get